and good morning. We welcome you to Brothers Market in beautiful downtown Sigourney on a December morning here in Brothers Market. Again, Sigourney, Iowa for the sports section. And as you can see there with the title along the bottom, we've got a special edition. We've been talking about this one for a while. Looking forward to having Coach Bob Howard back in Sigourney, recently announcing his retirement. We're going to bring Coach Howard up here momentarily. First, we start with the gang of Alan, Bruce, and Rick. Guys, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Welcome this morning. Before we get started here with Coach Howard, we will just let Rick give us a little spiel here.
Well, welcome to Brothers. It looks like there's an audience standing back there. Some of these guys that have probably had a connection with Coach Howard out there somehow, some way. So it's going to be exciting. It's a big day at the store. There's lots of specials going on as the Big Ten title game tonight. So come in, get your ground beef, all your Smokies, all that kind of stuff. Come in here, and adult beverages are ready in the corner. Whatever else you need, and
fire up that app.
Your melons are gone from this section, so you got to buy the donuts over here now. So we got our fresh made donuts here in the corner. So come on in, check out this show today, and it's also Go Hawks. So
all right, thanks, Rick. We'll see you at the end of the show.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, Rick Landgrebe, the manager of Brothers Market here in downtown Sigourney. Yes, we do have a little bit of a crowd here at Brothers Market, but you can get in here and do your grocery shopping this morning. Just walk on by and maybe hang out for a little while and watch the show. But if you don't mind, let's bring in the man of the hour. Literally, we're going to have an hour with Coach Howard till 9 o'clock this morning. If you want to put your hands together, guys, let's bring in Mr. Coach Bob Howard to the Sports Section Coaches Show here on Steve Shetler Media. Coach Howard, good to have you.
Well, we'll see how good it is to have me. No, I sure appreciate it. This is honestly a day I've been dreading for 45 years. And first of all, I never, ever have used the word retire with anything that was associated with this 2 weeks ago Wednesday when it come out up there. But we'll see. It was certainly fun to come back to Sigourney, and it's also really bittersweet. So I really appreciate the offer and the guys that have come out here to be part of this.
Thanks, Coach, for coming in here today. Coach Howard was first came here in 1980, and he left here in 2006. Just for the SK program, he complied a record of 180 wins and 34 losses, and I guess I'm pretty proud to say I was part of that too. So thanks a lot, Coach, on that. I guess I'm going to kind of break the ice here, Steve, and my first question here for Coach Howard is, what's the biggest fish you've ever caught?
Well, the longest one was a 30 and a quarter inch. Now, what species are we talking? Walleyes, a 30 and a quarter inch, really skinny walleye, July 3rd. It was probably 2003 off of the second hump at South Fork at Rathbun. The biggest one was one of the years we didn't make the playoffs in 2008 at Webster City, and the retired superintendent and I went to Rainy River, and she was 29 and a quarter, but she weighed 13 and a half pounds, and in the spring full of eggs, she would have been a really nice. Unfortunately, she isn't laying eggs anymore because that's on my white trash wall right above my 65-inch television with the paint peeling off the ceiling and the dog stains on the carpet. It should be a trailer house, but which would be fine with the dog. So that's the biggest walleye I've caught. So.
All right, that sounds good.
Speaking of which, I'm going to interrupt. I've got Eddie Conrad, Ed Conrad's son, Eddie. He's helping me out on color commentary, play-by-play announcing for the Keota Eagles basketball coverage. Eddie was telling me a story just last night about how you guys were ice fishing one time, and you basically smashed through the ice and pulled a bass out of the water. Do you remember that story?
I don't remember that. And I can't believe that a son of Ed Conrad's would make up a story like that. And very seldom did we fish for bass through the ice. So, but it could have happened. I don't know.
All right. Coach, let's go back to 1980. And if you can just kind of tell us how'd you end up in Sigourney, what it was like your first year of Sigourney.
Well, first of all, I interviewed 3 times at Humboldt that year, which is now arguably Webster City's biggest rival. And the superintendent wanted a pro football player to be their head coach, and they hired him, which was fine. And I ended up being really good friends with Dan McClanahan, too, in the future. But also at the same time interviewed at Sigourney. And remember, and that was Craig Downing was the superintendent at that time. And part of the interview and quite a bit of the time I spent was with Coach Smith, and Mike Mateer, and Don Baldus, and got to meet them really well. And then fortunately, between the Humboldt and the Sigourney job, which turned into obviously Sigourney Kyoto, I think probably God was looking out for somebody and got me the right one. And Humboldt would have been okay too, but the main reason I wanted Humboldt, to be perfectly honest, was the West Fork, the Des Moines River goes through there, and there's a really good low-head dam, and the fishing is really good in through there. And I like north central Iowa because it's flat and on all the county roads, but it was the right move for sure.
I guess kind of tell us about those first 7 years there at Sigourney when we were just Sigourney, just about some of the teams that kind of bring back some memories maybe.
Well, certainly the first team, and I hate even mentioning people like in that we did with Adam Sellers there during COVID where we tried to relive each season. I hate leaving people out, but that first team, 1980, had Marty Kerr. They were in the backfield, and I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to keep mentioning people and miss them. But it was a very big learning experience for a really fantastic coach from Scranton who knew everything. And what I really know now is I had 4 kids on that Scranton team that legitimately ran 4.5 40s. We didn't have a weight in the school. We didn't do anything. Back then, you couldn't work with kids in the off season anyway, which I wish it was still that way, to be honest. But people would find a way around it. So obviously, that is out the door. But I learned a lot from Coach Smith, and just how to behave, how to act on the field, how to expect to win. And if you don't win, if you play well, that's the main thing. And we ended up 5-4. And if I would have known anything and not had the ego I had, I wouldn't have changed one bit of the offense that Coach Henry ran the year before, because that's all those kids knew. And that was the problem. And I remember the last play of that 1980 season was at Iowa Valley, and they were always really good back then. We drove the length of the field, and they hadn't been coached not to do this. Nowadays, it'd probably be legal. Danny Horace ran up on a quarterback sneak, put both hands on Marty's back, and shoved him into the end zone, and they called it. And it was a 15-yard penalty, and we lost that game 15-14, and we were 5-4 instead of 6-3. From there, that next year was Brian Holt, no, it wasn't Brian Holt. See, that's where I shouldn't be mentioning names. It was Orland Walker and his group. They were 7-2, then 6-3. Then 1983 was kind of we moved forward. We beat one of the, because Clint always asked me, what was your favorite game? I said, well, one of the favorite football games was 1983 when we beat Williamsburg 13-0, and they looked like Central or College or Wartburg. They were huge. And they were really good, and they were undefeated when they came here, and we beat them 13-0. And that was Danny House and the kids that were going to be seniors the next year. The first time we went for the playoffs with me would have been Pat Margette, Brian Holt, Brian Striegel, Dave McLaughlin. That group, they were juniors then, and that was a big win. So those first few years, and that was the first time in '84 we got to play at the pit at Mount Vernon too, and they beat us by a field goal. But that was kind of whom I thought started being consistently a threat to be in the playoffs every year, and we'd won the conference in '83 too. So anyway, and I'm leaving stuff out, but.
And going on from there, from 84, 83, what made you decide to put the single wing in 87? I've always wondered that.
Well,
Just because of the talent you had on that 83, 84, 85.
well, the 86 group, and what was our record? 7-2, maybe something like that. Bill House had been was our quarterback, and the year before it had been Pat Herman, Kirk Kaler, Jeff Warwick. That was the backfield, and we ran some wishbone type stuff. And I always wanted to have a different offense. I always wanted to have an identity and be different. And we were going to play Iowa Valley because the schedule flipped around. We were going to play Iowa Valley the first game of the season. And they were really good. And a kid named Zuber, who went and ran hurdles at Arizona, who still may have the class 1A or A, whatever the small class is, record for high hurdles. He's like a 14-2 hurdler, and he averaged like 27 or 28 yards a punt return the first 2 years. So we never had a soap game, but we always had the scrimmage, and everybody always scouted each other, even though they weren't necessarily supposed to. And we ran the wishbone during that soap game, and we looked like Oklahoma. Billy House looked like Jamil Holloway running up and down the field. We scripted everything so the defense would stun to certain, so we had holes, because I didn't want anybody getting tackled. But Iowa Valley scouted us, and we had put the single wing in the